Hello and welcome to the Kill Stream. I am your host, Ethan Ralph, the owner and the editor-in-chief of the Ralph Retort, founder of the Kill Stream, all-around internet legend here joining you as the host of this program. So we're doing a debate today. I've been talking about it for a few weeks. I think actually this was the first one we had set up in our Blood Sports Revival series. I consider it a bonus episode because a little off the beaten path, let's face it, for the type of stuff we usually debate here on the Kill Stream. But it should still be interesting. I'm going to let them talk about it mostly. But to explain how the debate's set up, it's not going to be like the one you saw last night. That's how we usually do it on the Kill Stream. And no disrespect. That's how I prefer to do it. But that's not how we're doing it today. And I'm in for the difference here. So I'll explain. We'll start off with Jay Dyer's presentation. It's slated 12-minute limit. Then Kurgan will have a critique for 8 minutes. Then Kurgan will have a presentation for 12 minutes, and then Jay Dyer will have a critique for 8 minutes. Now, originally those were supposed to be 15. I shaved them down to 12 because I just felt like 15 was a little too much. I think 12 will be fine. So it's going to be more of a point-counterpoint type of program today. So that's how we're doing it. Let me go ahead and join it and go ahead and get this thing started. I think Flamenco, what are you doing here?
I just was seeing if you needed any help with anything, if you guys are taking...
well, I'm not even really going to be talking that much today. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I do have a part. You know what? I have a part for moderator comments at the end. If you want to come in and give some thoughts, that'd be fun.
Yeah, well, like I said, I'm just mostly here to listen in. All
right. Well, thank you, sir. All right. Well, that's good. We got Flamenco on tap, literally. Well, not literally, but... Okay, let me go ahead. Let me return to the call. Kill my webcam. It's always pointed against the wall anyway, just in case. Okay, I'm here. Let me switch the scenes here so people can see. There we go. So we have two different views here. We have the full screen and the traditional Kill Stream tube view. We'll start in the tube view. I'll probably switch back and forth during the program. Now, the way it's structured, I just explained that to the audience. But before we do get into the debate, Kurgan, you've never been on the program, and I'm also going to let Jay speak too. But why don't you introduce yourself real quick before we start, Kurgan?
Oh, okay. Well, very briefly, the name Kurgan was given to me by a bunch of people that sort of hang out on Vox Day's blog, and they got the name the Dread Ilk by sort of people who don't agree with Vox, and I hung out with them and we talked, and they named me that apparently because of my friendly attitude, I guess, after the bad guy in Highlander. And that's basically it. I became a Catholic only about 2 years ago, and I pretty much lived very much outside of the church for most of my life before that. And I sort of researched Christianity and everything for about 4 years before I got baptized, which was the result of a sort of road to Damascus moment. That's about it. I mean, if you want to know more, just ask me.
No, that's fine. Yeah, just a little brief, because for people who don't know you. Now, Jay Dyer, you've been on the program before several times, actually, in high-profile visits. But, I gave him that opportunity, so if you want to add something yourself, go ahead.
Yeah, just let me change hats real quick here over to... the shark hat. That's my debate hat.
Is that a Greg Norman? Is that Norman's logo, I think? Yeah, go ahead.
This is my shark debate hat. All right, so yeah, I do jaysanalysis.com. I've done that for about 11 years, roughly. I'm the author of 2 books on Hollywood, film, and symbolism. I'm the creator of the TV show Hollywood Decoded. I have 2 books coming out this year on Orthodox theology and apologetics. I was in Roman Catholicism for about 8, 9, 10 years, somewhere in there. I was in the circles of Sedevacantism, so I think that I'm going to be more than able to debate this topic. So glad to be here. Thanks, Ralph.
Oh, you're very welcome. Like I said, it is a little bit. I did have some people on Twitter be like, "What? What are you guys talking about?" Well, that's why we're here, and to educate some people and get some hopefully some good arguments going. Now, it's my understanding that you're slotted for the opening presentation, Jay. So I'll just throw it over to you, sir.
All right. Well, yeah. So, like I said, I'm familiar with these movements. I was involved in these movements for many years throughout the 2000s. To begin my rebuttal to his videos, I think that's where I'm going to start. I know that we agreed to discuss specifically the topic of the vacancy of the Apostolic See. But in his videos, he made a basic blunder, which was that I made up a quote about martyrs outside of the Catholic Church not existing. and he faulted me for citing unum sanctum. In fact, I cited unum sanctum and Cantate Domino. Cantate Domino is Denzinger 714. If you're familiar with Denzinger, it's this big fat book of Catholic dogmas. So Denzinger 714 is actually referencing an older statement in Denzinger 246 and 247. Denzinger 247 is under Pope Pelagius II, and it states that there are no martyrs outside of the Catholic Church, that you cannot attain to the rewards of the church. So if anybody wants to, they can pull up patristica.net and they can look up Denzinger, and they will see Denzinger specifically says in 247 that there are no martyrs outside of the Catholic Church. Now, he didn't pay attention to my video because my video was actually directed at a specific group of Sedevacantists online, who are the largest online group of Sedevacantists. The whole book that I was covering in that lecture was by John Pantrello, who used to be in this group. So John wrote that book while leaving this group. This group believes that there is no baptism of desire. So he should have paid attention to the full talk, and he would have realized that I wasn't just citing unum sanctum, which talks about the necessity of being in union with the Roman bishop. I was actually citing unum sanctum and Cantate Domino in unison together. Now, if he wants to disagree with that group, that's fine. He can disagree all he wants to with that group, but that's what my video was directed against. It was a response to a 2-hour smear video that was done by one of the largest Sedevacantist groups online. So that is what I wanted to initially address. That was his basic first mistake and blunder. A couple other mistakes I will address that he made really quickly, which was that he said that I said that there are no Sedevacantist chapels, that it doesn't have an actual existing structure. What I said is that in substance, this is an online movement. Are there Sedevacantist chapels? Absolutely. I've been to them. I attended masses that existed in Hampton Inns when I was in the circles of Sedevacantism. So I'm aware that there are chapels. My point was that the link that he gave underneath his video was to 100 or so chapels throughout the world, who are a bunch of disparate groups who all disagree amongst themselves on basic doctrines such as Sedevacantism versus Sedepravationism, baptism of desire versus Fenianism. My video was against Fenianism, so he attacked a position that is irrelevant to what I'm actually arguing. He set up a straw man. I'm arguing specifically against this whole crew of people in this movement, that they don't have a coherent position based on what Vatican I, Satis Cognitum, Mystici Corporis, and canon law, the old code of canon law, say about what the Roman bishop and his essential constituent properties are of the Roman See, right? So the Roman See has specific essential constituent properties, which I covered in my video, that will endure until the return of Christ, until the end of time, as Vatican I says. These are dogmas that you have to hold to. So we're going to address some of these here in a second, but I want to point out that the constitution on the Church of Vatican I, which is Pastor Eternus of Pius IX, this is Denzinger 1821 through 1824. These list certain properties that are, again, essential constituent properties of the Roman See. I'm going to put them up here for you. The first is Peter himself. Peter presides in his successors by direct institution of our Lord in perpetuity to the end of the world. So Peter himself is the beginning and foundation of the Roman pontiff and the Roman See. Point 2 is the primacy. Peter possesses primacy over all bishops, and that includes universal jurisdiction, that includes disciplinary decisions, that includes extraordinary magisterium, and that includes everything that's ordinary magisterium as well that's universal. Vatican I makes it very clear that ordinary universal magisterium also must be accepted. Point 3 is that the Roman See also includes the Roman Curia. Now, I imagine the opponent is going to try to cite the older code of canon law because he thinks that the new code of canon law has fake canons that are added to it, which actually just presupposes his position that his Seda version of Catholicism is true. Well, he hasn't actually demonstrated that yet. Maybe he will. But it doesn't matter whether we pick the new code of canon law in 1983 or the 1917 code of canon law, because the code of canon law in 1917 in 149, in 218, in 154 through 160, in 230 through 241, in 162 and 164 and 180 on, all specify the exact same points, that the Roman Curia, the Holy See, consists of the Roman congregations, the Roman Curia, All of the holy offices that are there, basically the holy office, the Congregation of Doctrine of Faith, etc., all of those offices, when they are signed onto by the Pope, are part of the Holy See, the Apostolic See. This is what the Sedevacantists don't understand and why they are wrong. You do have to accept the disciplinary measures of the Roman See. The Roman See includes the Curia and the congregations. And then finally, the Roman living pontiff, which Vatican I says will exist in perpetuity to the end of the world. The Roman pontiff exists as the source of the four marks of the church: one, holy, Catholic, and apostolic. He is the source of unity. He is the source of how the church remains universal and Catholic. He is the source of apostolicity, because you only have jurisdiction and licit rights to celebrate the sacraments in unity with the Holy Roman See. All of those things are absolutely necessary. So, what is the essence of the church in the Roman Catholic dogma? The church is indefectible, okay? The church is in perpetuity, right? The church is public and it is visible. It has a Petrine office that makes it public and visible. This essential characteristic is defined at Vatican I and in Satis Cognitum to exist until the return of Christ, specifically, until the end of the world. It's not saying, oh, at the end of the world, there's going to be a 100-year period, a 200-year period where there's no actual existing Roman successor who has the prerogatives of Peter. So he's going to try to introduce some divide between guys in an office who are popes, but don't actually have the authority and the charism of Peter. That's impossible. You can't have that. That's a direct violation of Vatican I. Vatican I specifies that you have to accept the Roman pontiff and the Roman Curia, and who the Roman Curia decides is the successor. This is the key linchpin that destroys all of Sedevacantism, because they think that they can reject who the cardinals and the Roman Curia elect as the Pope. You cannot. You have no right to do that. The old Code of Canon Law says you have to accept who the Roman Curia accepts as the Pope. And so he's laughing, but he doesn't understand that he has no right as a Catholic, an individual, to judge the Holy See. The old Code of Canon Law says no man judges who the Roman Curia accepts. So let's move on to where this is found. The essential characteristics of the Roman See are found, number one, in Denzinger 1821 through 24. Rome is identified as the actual seat. You can read the Catholic Encyclopedia on the Holy See, on the Roman Curia and the Roman congregations, that its decisions are final and that you do have to receive who they accept as the Pope. You don't have the right to judge who they accept and elect as the Pope. The Roman primacy is mentioned in these texts. There is also a living magisterial successor. Let me turn to one of the most famous traditional Catholic theologians, Ludwig Ott, Fundamentals of Catholic Dogma. On pages 279 to 281, he lists the very things that we just read in my description. He lists the primacy of St. Peter. He lists full and supreme jurisdiction. He lists that the Pope has the right to judge faith and morals and disciplinary decisions. Again, according to Vatican I, you don't have a right to reject the disciplinary decisions of the Pope. You don't have a right to choose who you think the Pope is. You don't have a right to decide which doctrines are ex cathedra and which aren't. You submit to the living magisterium. You must submit to the See of Rome, which includes the Roman Curia and its congregations. So for Sedevacantism or Sedepravationism, it doesn't matter. He's got some niche thing that he thinks will lead him out of this. Either one, it doesn't matter, because they have denied the fundamental constitution of the church to the end of the world, where for the last 60 plus years, they believe that they have the right in their own individual fallible decisions to choose who they want to accept and what they want to accept. So in essence, they have to reject not just the extraordinary magisterium of the last 60 years, which there are with Vatican II. Vatican II is actually dogmatic. It's the dogmatic constitution of the church. It deals with faith and morals, and is from the Apostolic See for all the entire church. That's all that's needed for extraordinary magisterial authority. He also has to reject the universal ordinary magisterium, which Vatican I specifically says is under the charism of Peter and is universal and is infallible. And in fact, the only thing that he wants to reject, if he wants to reject something which he can reject, is the non-universal ordinary magisterial teaching. But guess what? In Roman Catholic moral theology, you have to submit to that with docility. So what we have here is a invisible church doctrine. the idea that I'm going to be in union with a vacant or a see with a privation that's in the way for the grace of the charism. And he's made this decision on the basis of what he's determined from canon law, but Roman Catholic theology does not allow him to make the decision on who is the Pope and who's valid as Pope. This is why the Vatican I is very clear that there will be no defections of the Roman See. And for him to ever have a Pope again, according to Vatican I, it can never occur. Why can it never occur? Is it because bishops couldn't get together and elect another Pope? Sure. There are Sedevacantist conclaves who have done this, who have gotten together and elected their own little popes, many of them. And they're actually more consistent than the Sedevacantists or the SSPX, because they understand that the promise of Vatican I is that the perpetuity and the essential constitution of the church and its Roman office will continue until the end. So you can't have this 60+ year vacancy. Why can you not? Because all of the Roman curia who would elect the next pope, that's Roman dogma on how you get the pope now. It's been codified for centuries. That's how the pope comes to be. You can't have bishops who don't have jurisdiction, who aren't licit, electing a new pope in Kansas or in Palmyra or wherever else the conclavists want to have it. That's why Vatican I destroys Sedevacantism and Sedepravationism, because they have to deny the perpetuity of the authority of the Apostolic See until the end. And they have to grant a 60+ 100 year, whatever it is, vacancy of the Apostolic See. Well, guess what? If there's been a vacancy or a privation for that long, you don't have a curia who won't be Orthodox. All the curia are going to be heretics because they've accepted Vatican II. So you're going to have a curia of a bunch of heretics electing the next pope. That's impossible on the doctrine of the indefectibility of the Roman See. So this heretic actually believes that the Roman See has defected, as he holds a Nestorian stupid doctrine about how the Roman See has not defected because there are still successors, that he doesn't accept their magisterial teaching. So he's a heretic.
All right. You finished up right at 12 minutes pretty much. Gave you a little extra 15 seconds there. And I'll show the same courtesy to Kurgan. He has 8 minutes. And his time begins now.
Right. Now, all of what Jay has said is pretty much nonsense, and he refers to Ludwig Denzinger, the Catholic Encyclopedia.
Ludwig Denzinger? You can't even name the people.
It's all irrelevant. Hold on. Don't interrupt, Jay. Hold on. Be emotionally consistent. So he names these guys, and they're irrelevant because it's not canon law, and it's not papal encyclicals, which are really where the laws of the Catholic Church come from. Now, he did say two things that I do agree with. He said that no man has the authority to judge the Holy See of the Catholic Church, and as a Catholic, you cannot reject the magisterium of the Church. I actually agree with these 2 points. And let me explain why everything else that he said doesn't make any sense. It's entirely correct on these 2 points, but no Sedeprivationist is judging the Pope, nor ignoring the magisterium of the Church. In fact, quite the opposite. It's the very magisterium of the Church which put together the Code of Canon Law of 1917. The Code of Canon Law of 1917 identifies all the laws of the Catholic Church, and essentially Code 188 Part 4 says that a heretic, without anyone required to make any official pronouncement, becomes an invalid cleric right away. So this is a very sensible law, and most of the laws in the Code of Canon Law are very sensible and easy to follow. If you want to go into the details of it, at my blog at gfilotto.com, I actually put up a written exposition of this. On the 7th of September, there's a blog post on it. So if you want to go to details, you can go there. Secondly, the papal office itself, in the form of the papal encyclical of Paul IV, Cum ex apostolatus officium, which Dyer refers to in his video, makes it abundantly clear that fake popes, impostor popes, heretic popes are not popes at all and should be completely and utterly ignored, as should any of their pronouncements, edicts, or promotions of the clerics. So, once again, I'm not going against the papal encyclicals or the Catholic dogma or the magisterium of the Church. Now, in his arguments, essentially, what Mr. Dyer is trying to do is saying that Sedevacantists, he conflates them with, wandering bishops and trailer park popes, and that they're just a small online movement. Well, if you go to ecclesia.luxvera.org, you will find that there are 364 churches made of brick and mortar listed there, 179 of them in the USA alone. So it's not a small online movement. And that doesn't take into account all the meetings that happen in, halls and people's houses with valid priests to do the sacraments. So it is a big movement. In the zeitgeist of the world, it's a big movement anyways, which is why Bergoglio is now sort of being exposed, him and the other pedophiles in the Vatican, almost daily. And he's gone from being the best thing since sliced bread to, now almost every nominal Catholic sort of doesn't like the guy. And why? Because the Sedevacantist movement keeps growing, and its effect on the world is pretty impactful. I mean, the most famous film ever made on Jesus Christ, The Passion, was made by Mel Gibson, who is a Sedevacantist who rejects Vatican II. So again, we're not rejecting the Pope, we're not rejecting the magisterium of the Church, and I don't really care what Denzinger, Ludwig, or the Catholic Encyclopedia says. It's irrelevant, because canon law is where actually the laws are said. The papal encyclicals clearly state that we've had a heretic Pope. And third, I don't disagree with the fact that the bishops vote the new Pope in. The reason that Sedevacantists are not doing that, and by the way, all the churches that are on that blog site I just gave, they are in communion, even when they do disagree on certain points. There's a thing going on at the moment between one of the bishops not following canon law in worldly matters and other people disagreeing with him. And yet, he refers people to other bishops that will give the sacraments that he denies to people that don't follow his authority. And the other bishops say, yeah, that he's wrong in that, but you can still take the sacraments with him if you just keep quiet, because he doesn't actually have any worldly authority. And the reason they're not electing a new pope is simply because, again, people like Jay Dyer would say, oh, you're just a bunch of crazy guys electing your own pope. It makes no sense. Let's wake up all the Catholics to the reality of the facts, which is happening. It's taken a long while because it's been a long time since Vatican II, and it was a massive blow to the church, but not a fatal one. The church is still around, still visible, and in my rebuttal, which happens next, I will go through the details of exactly how that works. So, I mean, that's basically it. I don't know how much time have I got left, because I didn't check.
Let me unmute myself. You still have about 3 minutes left. If you want to stop, all right, you can.
So, yeah, I mean, let me, those 2 points about Sedevacantism being a fragmented little movement that's mostly online. I believe that Mr. Dyer is fully aware that this is not the case, because, like he said, he was a Sedeprivationist himself, or a Sedevacantist, whatever you want to call it. The fact that fake bishops of what I call the Novus Orco Church, the new Orc Church, are being exposed daily, being child traffickers and child molesters, and the fact that the Pope is friends with Vera, a guy who is known to be child trafficking. It comes from the fact that a lot of people are going online to find out these details. And the Code of Canon Law is very, very clear on this. Now, the reason I reject the new code, fake new Code of Canon Law, is because the same fake invalid clerics who don't reject Vatican II put it together. So, the same guys who are heretics, not Catholics, not valid clerics, put together a new Code of Canon Law. And by the way, if you look at the new Code of Canon Law, it's designed to completely invalidate what the only valid Code of Canon Law of 1917 says. So, of course, I reject it. It's created by heretics. So that's it for my rebuttal. And let me know when I can start my.
Yeah, that's it. By the way, I know we didn't agree to this, and you guys can refuse or not. But Chad is asking for a back and forth round. We can talk about that after if you want to do that. But it's your time for your 12 minutes now. Give me a second. Let me reset the clock, and you're on the clock right now.
Okay. So now the main claim that he makes is that the head and foundation of the Catholic Church is the Pope, and without a visible and valid Pope in office, the Church fundamentally ceases to exist. This is basically what he's saying. Now, he refers to Mystici Corporis, which is a papal encyclical of 1943 by Pope Pius XII, and he refers to Satis Cognitum, a papal encyclical of Leo XIII, both of which these papal encyclicals happened after Vatican I, and Mystici Corporis refers to it. So it makes sense to use these documents, as they're the most recent ones before Vatican II that explain some stuff about the Church. Now, Mystici Corporis is essentially explaining the mystical body of Christ. I totally reject what Mr. Dyer is saying about the fact that the Pope is, the complete head of the Church, and if he isn't visible, the Church ceases to exist, for a number of very simple reasons. First of all, Mystici Corporis itself. There are 113 paragraphs in Mystici Corporis, and only 2, if you squint just so, and you look at it in complete isolation and ignore the rest of the document entirely, could you even remotely interpret them as supporting Mr. Dyer's astonishing theory? These are paragraphs 41 and 69. However, there are at least 16 other paragraphs that directly and unambiguously state that the only head of the church is Jesus Christ, and that he acts through those he chooses on earth, including the lowest of the low in times of crisis. In particular, this refers to paragraphs 46 through to 60. Time prevents me to go into it, but we can go into it a bit more if we have more time at the end.
Sure.
In addition to these 16 paragraphs I just mentioned, there are more that clearly point out that the highest offices are not free from being taken over by evil and turn men, and that Jesus permits this as a teaching moment, really, so that those who do hold the faith can come to the fore in unexpected and almost miraculous ways. More specifically, paragraph 66, which warns us that even the most exalted are not immune to turning against the truth and the church, and paragraph 86 and 87, which explain we have free will to go against Jesus, but this is not Jesus' fault because he wants us to participate in his realm and not be blindly obedient sheep who do things like robots. Paragraph 39 and 44 are both probably the paragraphs who most beautifully contextualize instead of atomize, which is what Mr. Dyer does with Mystica Corporis. We probably don't have time to go through all of them, but I'm going to read through paragraph 44 just because I think it sort of embodies the whole document quite well. And it reads as follows. Because Christ, the head, holds such an eminent position, one must not think that he does not require the help of the body. What Paul says of the human organism is to be applied likewise to the mystical body. The head cannot say to the feet, I have no need of you. It is manifestly clear that the faithful need the help of the divine Redeemer, for he has said, without me you can do nothing. In other words, everything that happens is because of Jesus. And it continues. And according to the teachings of the apostles, every advance of this mystical body towards its perfection derives from Christ the head. In other words, Jesus Christ is the head, not the Pope. The Pope is the visible representative on earth, and we'll get to that in a minute. Continuing, yet this also must be held, marvelous though it may seem, Christ has need of his members. First, because the person of Jesus Christ is represented by the Supreme Pontiff, who in turn must call on others to share much of his solicitude, lest he be overwhelmed by the burden of his pastoral office, and must be helped daily by the prayers of the Church. Moreover, as our Savior does not rule the Church directly in a visible manner, he wills to be helped by the members of his body in carrying out the work of redemption. And now, there's a little bit of a passage, I'll read it all anyway. This is not because he's indigent and weak, but rather because he has so willed it for the greater glory of his spotless spouse. So, dying on the cross, he left to his church the immense treasury of the redemption, towards which she contributed nothing. In other words, everything happened because of Jesus. The church didn't redeem anything, he did. But when those graces come to be distributed, not only does he share this work of sanctification with his church, but he wills that in some way it be due to her action. In other words, he wants us to be, co-redemptors and sort of help the realm along. This is a deep mystery and an inexhaustible subject of meditation, that the salvation of many depends on the prayer and voluntary penances which the members of the mystical body of Jesus Christ offer for this intention, and on the cooperation of pastors of souls and of the faithful, especially of fathers and mothers of families, a cooperation which they must offer to our divine Savior as though they were his associates. It goes on in other paragraphs to state that in times of crises, normal people come up, and people who do hold the faith strongly come up to prove the point. So again, one of the most fundamental people that are required are fathers and mothers, which clearly are not the clerical the clerics of the Catholic Church, since they can't be married and so on. Now, so I advise everybody to read Mystica Corporis. It's online at papalencyclicals.net, and you can see for yourself, so that I'm not making this up. Secondly, he quotes Satis Cognitum, or pretends to quote Satis Cognitum itself. And in order to try and support his idea, Mr. Dyer quotes something at 1 hour, 16 minutes, and 35 seconds in his video, Sedevacantism Proves Orthodox Theology. And I quote, I'm now quoting Jay Dyer, the Roman pontiff possesses supreme jurisdiction in the church, jure divino. It was necessary that the government be of this kind, since it belongs to the Constitution and formation of the Church as a principal element. Its principle of unity, its foundation of everlasting stability, can in no wise come to an end, end quote. And he uses this as a supposed quote being definitive and conclusive evidence of his position as stated by Pope Leo XIII himself. There's only one problem. This quote doesn't appear anywhere in Satis Cognitum, and you can verify this for yourself, again, at papalencyclicalsonline.net. So once again, Mr. Dyer is simply either making things up out of whole cloth or conflating different things to make them into an unwholesome new mess. The historical objective fact that the Church has many times had no valid or visible popes is a fact. It happens every time between popes, and it happens when we have an anti-pope or a fake pope in the chair, which has happened again more than 40 times before 1958 in the current situation. But perhaps most damning of all is the papal encyclical, which Mr. Dyer mentions and briefly skips over, very quickly skips over it, which is interesting since this papal encyclical of Paul IV of 1559 unambiguously and directly spells out not only that there have been and could be again fake popes, heretics, and even validly elected popes that later become heretic and as such become completely invalid. It also very clearly and directly points out that any rules, laws, edicts, promotions made by any such fake popes are to be treated as completely invalid alongside with all the people that may have elected to various offices. In other words, the very opposite position of what Mr. Dyer claims is part of the Catholic Church official position. Anti-popes have always existed and will again, and they must be rejected in the absolute and in their totality. So again, the Church's very rules make it very clear that you can have fake popes. And fifthly, in his video, Mr. Dyer says, that the sacraments and all the bishops are invalid and therefore you can't have sacraments. Again, this is just nonsense. Whenever you have no pope on the chair or a fake pope, the bishops and priests continue to issue sacraments uninterrupted. So I don't know where it comes up with that claim. He then makes a bunch of other claims on Sedevacantism, but I wanted to address very quickly what he said about, the fundamental things of the Church according to Denzinger. I don't care who Denzinger is. There have been numbers of theologians all over the place. It's irrelevant. What the magisterium of the Church says is what's relevant. Now, I do agree that the Pope does have primacy over all the other bishops when he's around. So if we do have a valid Pope, then you obey him, you listen to him, and his word is law. That's fine. We just don't have one at the moment. So what we've got to go on is the magisterium of the Church that has been left with us, and those bishops and priests who reject Vatican II and therefore are not schismatic heretics, parts of the new Novus Ordo Church. So why don't we elect a pope, which, by the way, again, Mr. Dyer tries to conflate, trailer park popes and the current bishops, which actually are Sedevacantists or Sedeprivationists. And it's just dishonest because all these bishops are in communion with each other. I know for a fact because I'm intimately involved with some of these things. And even when they disagree on certain ideas or principles, they still refer people to one another in terms of getting valid sacraments. Now, it would make no sense to try and elect a pope now for the very reason that, as we've discussed here and as we're seeing, most people have been deceived. Most so-called nominal Catholics, which are 1.2 billion, haven't got a clue because they haven't kept their eye on the ball. They haven't read the laws. They haven't read the canon law. So they don't know that they're being cheated. This is why there is such a strong education going on online, which bypasses the mass media, and it's happening. And again, the points that he made are just not what he said. So I think I'm done. I think I've got a couple of seconds left. But I don't know.
You have about a minute and 50 seconds left if you want to say something there.
Well, he makes another bunch of claims about why if the Church had actually been infiltrated and hijacked, this proves indefectibility. But again, I refer to Ex Apostolatus Officium, which clearly indicates that we've had many anti-popes before, and that didn't crash the Church, end it, or anything. As for the idea that, it's 61 years, so it's too much, there is no rule, no dogmatic principle, no papal encyclical that says, you only have X number of years without a valid pope before it all collapses. That's nowhere. That's just a Jay Dyer interpretation. That's me done.
All right, you're done. Jay Dyer, you have 8 minutes and your time begins now.
Yeah, one of the things I like to do when I can assess when an opponent doesn't know what he's talking about is refer to things that I don't think he'll know what they are. And we saw that just now. This guy is off the charts, arrogant, not even knowing what Denzinger is. Anybody who is fluent in Catholic theology at a basic theological level knows that Denzinger is not a fallible man with fallible opinions. Denzinger is the collection of Roman dogmas of the papacy, you buffoon. You just shot yourself in the foot coming on here, making hours and hours of videos, calling me a moron, and you don't know that Denzinger is the sources of Catholic dogma. You called it, I quote, Ludwig Denzinger. I cited Ludwig Ott as a Catholic theologian. No. So you don't know the sources of Catholic dogma. You see this 800-page book? I read it twice. You don't know. You don't even know what it is. It's the sources of Catholic dogma. That's why everyone's laughing and you lost the debate in your first rebuttal. Now, let's get on to your claims. First of all, did I say that? What did I say about the election of the Pope? I said that if we've had a vacancy of 60 plus years, who elects the Pope in Roman Catholic canon law? You said I didn't cite canon law. I cited multiple code of canon law from the 1917 code. I did too. I listed them. Maybe you weren't listening. Maybe you didn't hear that, but I cited canons 149, canons 219, 154 through 160, 162, 230 to 241, 164, 180 on. The Roman Curia elects and decides who the Pope is, not you. You don't care? That's your code of canon law, Goofus, the one that you said I didn't cite.
That's fine.
Vatican, no, it's not fine. You said I didn't cite it. I did cite it. I listed them. You didn't listen. Vatican I says who the head of the church is, and it's the Pope. Session 4, chapter 2 says the Pope is the head of the church on earth. You said that it's Jesus who's the head of the church. Yeah, Roman Catholic dogma says that Jesus is the head of the church and that the visible earthly head is the Pope, who is in perpetuity in succession to the end of the world, having visible successors. That's what Vatican I says. You don't know what Pastor Eternus is. I didn't just cite Satis Cognitum and Mystici Corporis. I cited Vatican I. Exactly. So you look at Session 4, chapter 2, which calls the Pope the earthly head. And it says that his office and the essential constitution of the church continue to the end of the world. Did you not notice that? That was the argument. You don't care. You don't care. So you don't accept the last 60 years of successors. So that fundamental office of Peter has lost its essential properties. It doesn't function the way it did for the last 1800, 1900 years, correct?
No, it functions fine.
How does it function fine when you don't accept the last 60 plus years of successors?
Well, it's just not there. So what?
So it doesn't function if it's not there. That's why you're a Gnostic heretic.
No, it's not there because it's not there. It's happened before, plenty of times.
Yeah, that's why you're a heretic. You reject Vatican I. It says it exists in perpetuity in the exact same form with visible successors until the end of the world.
It doesn't actually say that it has to.
It does says that. It says until the return of Christ. It says until the end of the ages.
Has Christ returned?
Yeah, so the See of Peter exists in the same form as it did at the time of Vatican I until the end of the world. The time of Peter all the way to the end.
It doesn't say that, Jay.
It does say that. It says until the return, until the end of the ages.
As Jesus returned.
No.
Okay. Therefore, you don't know that there isn't going to be yet another pope at some point in the future.
It says that the office and the fundamental constitution of the church can't change. So you have a defection of the Roman See.
No, we've had a defection of the Roman See plenty of times by your definition.
That's not a defection.
No.
A vacancy is not a defection.
We've had anti-popes. We've had vacancies that...
So what? It's not a defection of the Roman See according to Vatican I. There's no defection of the Roman See. It says it's impossible.
Right, and there isn't one. I don't know why.
You just said there was a defection with anti-popes.
Pardon me?
Oh, my God.
I didn't hear what you said.
We move on. So he said I didn't cite canon law. I cited many. I cited the canon law, which says you don't judge the Pope. He said I didn't cite encyclicals. I cited Denzinger, which is above encyclicals. Denzinger includes encyclicals. It's the ordinary universal magisterial teaching of the church. You didn't even know what Denzinger was. He said that there are hundreds of chapels. I'm responding to you. Yeah. Well, you haven't read it because you would know what it is, right?
I have.
What is that?
This is the code of Pioneer Benedictine canon law, which
I'm talking about Denzinger, and I listed for you all the canons.
These are the laws, not Denzinger.
Denzinger is the papal dogmas, you goofus. You didn't even know that.
It's an interpretation.
Yes, it is. What do you mean? No, you just lost the debate. Enchiridion Symbolorum. It's the papal dogmas. It's the list of papal dogmas. It's not Denzinger, his opinions.
No,
You didn't know what it was.
the laws of the Catholic Church are in one book. They're here.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are.
No, they're not. You don't know what Denzinger. You just made a fool of yourself. You lost the debate, and you talked nonsense for hours, and you just got demolished. I told you I would demolish you.
Whichever theologian you want, it's irrelevant.
It's not a theologian. It's the dogmas, and every trad Catholic knows that.
It's not the magisterium of the church, and
This is the magisterial teaching of the church.
No,
Every trad Catholic knows that. That's canon law. That's the application of the dogmas.
Exactly.
This is the dogmas.
No, the dogmas of the
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. There is not a Catholic in the world who will deny that Denzinger is the dogmas of the church.
Okay, Jay. I guess people will just have to find out for themselves.
Everybody already knows it. The entire chat knows this.
Maybe your guys know that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Do you know where I got this? From a trad chapel, from an SSPX chapel.
The SSPX are not Catholics. They're heretics.
Right. But the trads agree amongst themselves, right? Oh, wait, the Sedes agree amongst themselves, right?
Yeah, the Sedes do. And SSPX.
No, they don't. No, they don't. I cited in my video the largest online group, which are Feeneites. When you made your video, you went against Feeneites.
I don't know who you're talking
about. You don't
about.
agree.
I don't know who you're talking about. I don't know these people. And I'm pretty.
Well, then you should have paid attention to the video that you were responding to, because that's who the video was against.
Jay, I can quote some random little schismatic idiot. It doesn't mean that
it's the largest online group of Sedevacantists.
That's what you say.
They're way larger than you.
No, you don't even know. There's no group. There's no like little name.
Okay, so there's no Dimond Brothers. There's no Vatican Catholic with 100,000 subscribers on YouTube.
The Dimond Brothers or me or whoever is just a guy talking.
I said they're the largest online group of Sedevacantists is what I said.
But there's no cohesion of the online groups. They're just people like myself.
There's no cohesion of the groups at all. They don't cohere.
There's cohesion.
The groups that you listed in your list of chapels, they don't agree.
No, the clergy do all respect.
No, they do not. Total nonsense.
Again, you're just talking shit.
No, I'm not talking shit. I was in these groups, and everybody who's spent time in these groups knows that these groups fracture more than Protestants.
That's your interpretation, mate.
Okay, whatever. Sedevacantists, Sedepravationists, which of these positions is true if they're unified?
Well, again, it's a misnomer, because Sedevacantism comes from the Latin and simply says empty chair. Now, the chair is physically not empty because it's filled by an imposter. So sedepravation is the correct term. And I don't know. I've never met a single so-called sedevacantist that is actually not a sedepravationist. We all know that the chair is not empty.
They're two different opinions. They're two different positions.
No, by the way, I agree. That's one thing I said that I agree with you, that the Roman Curia, for the most part, what you're saying is that if Vatican II is heretic, then most of the Roman Curia are also heretics. Absolutely true. Yes, I agree with you. Yes, they are. Except those bishops that did not stick with Vatican II, that rejected it.
They're not the Roman Curia. They're not the Holy See.
They are. Any bishop.
No, they're not. The Roman Curia is the holy congregations in Rome.
No.
Catholic Encyclopedia. That's what canon law defines it as.
This is again in Mystici Corporis. It clearly explains it, that all the bishops of the Catholic Church are part of the Roman Curia. And
they're not. What is the Roman Curia? I'll read it for you at Catholic Encyclopedia. Strictly speaking, the ensemble of departments and ministries which assist the Roman pontiff. These are the Roman congregations, the tribunals, and the curia, the cardinals, and the pontifical family. That's not every bishop. That's the ones in Rome.
Jay, cardinal is just a worldly thing. In the Roman Church, you've got bishops and priests, and the Pope is just another.
They're the Roman Curia. The Curia of Rome. Not every bishop in the world is part of the Roman Curia.
All that, you're trying to use these Latin words as though you understand what they mean. All that Curia means is the bishops and priests.
They're the tribunals of the Holy See.
Yeah,
the Congregation of the Doctrine of Faith.
Yeah, the bishop.
Not every bishop in the world. Not every bishop in the world elects the Pope. The Roman Curia does.
The ones that are elected to do so, do so. And it can be anybody. Some of them can even.
No, it cannot. No, the Roman Curia, according to canon law, is who elects the Pope.
Yes, and if the Roman Curia defects, another bishop replaces them quite clearly, as in Ex Postulatum Officium clearly states, anybody elected by a heretic pope is an invalid cleric.
So you've admitted the defection of the Roman See.
There is no defection. The Roman See currently...
You just said the Roman Curia defected.
I said that, yeah, what I'm saying is that... No, that's what I said. I said all the people that accept Vatican II are not Catholic clerics. End of.
So the Roman See has defected. How are you going to have another pope? Because the Roman Curia elects the pope.
The Roman See continues to exist in the bodies of those bishops that did not defect. It's very simple.
No, that's not possible, because the bishops that did not defect are not the Roman See.
Any bishop is part of the Roman See.
No, they're not. The Roman See is the one in Rome.
Okay, Jay, again, this is where I think you're a bit of...
Vatican I.
And you're trying to put your interpretation of things on laws that
are... The Roman See is not a guy in Kansas.
I agree with you.
You just said it can be anybody.
No, I didn't say that. You were saying that.
You said any bishop. You said any bishop is the Roman Curia. No, they're not.
Any bishop is part of the Roman Curia. I did
no,
say
they're not. That's a basic blunder.
Yes, they are.
Your code of canon law in front of you tells you, in the ones I listed earlier, who elects the Pope and who the Roman Curia is. It's not every episcopate in the world.
No, it's a valid bishops that hold their office. If those offices have been vacated by them not being valid bishops, clearly they can't elect a new pope. It's not difficult, Jay. Why are you confused?
Because the Roman See is defined, according to Vatican I and according to many other places like Setis Cognitum, to be the see over in Rome that possesses the Roman Curia who elects the Pope. That's what the Roman See and the Holy See and the Apostolic See are.
You know very well that the see does not have to be in Rome. In fact, we had papacies that were in France.
It is invariably tied to Rome. It doesn't have to be in Rome, but it is tied to Rome, and that's what Vatican I says. That's Denzinger 1821 to 24 makes this point.
A very simple reason that it's tied to Rome is because Peter the First
exactly right
died and got martyred.
So Rome, of Peter tied to the See of Rome. The seat of Rome can move to Avignon in the Roman Catholic view. I understand that. Right. But it's still successors to Peter.
Pardon? Say again.
Still successors to Peter wherever the See of Rome is.
Absolutely agree with you. Absolutely agree with you. Wherever.
Presently, the See of Rome is the one that's in Rome, because that's what the cardinals recognized at the time of Vatican II, and that's what the whole world recognized as the Pope.
I might be understanding. Maybe we're talking past each other. Let me see if I get you right. I'm going to try and explain what I think you're saying, and you tell me if I got it right. You're saying that because the bishops in Rome have all become heretics and apostated, therefore the offices of the Apostolic See, whether it's whichever offices, are all empty, and therefore you don't have people left that can validly elect the Pope. Is that what you're saying?
I'm going to draw it out for you once again, because you didn't listen.
No, mate, I'm just asking a simple question. Did I interpret what you said correctly?
I'm going to draw it out for you again because you didn't hear what I said.
Well, all right.
When we read Denzinger 1821 to 24, you do have to accept Denzinger, and this is why you lost the debate. Yes, you do. It's just list of dogmas, you goof.
An interpretation.
That's why you're laughing, because you didn't even know that. You came to the debate and you didn't know that.
Interpretation of dogmas by somebody.
It's not an interpretation of dogmas. It's just a list. It's accepted by the whole world as dogma.
No, Jay, you're just...
Yes, it is.
No, you're just making stuff up.
I'm making stuff up. Yeah. I'm making up that Denzinger is the sources of Catholic dogma and that it's accepted by the entire world. Are you aware that if you go to the Vatican website in the older encyclicals, they cite this? Did you know that?
The rules of the church are codified in one.
This is the dogmas. I'm not talking about the canons. Canons are part of dogmas. They're not the totality of dogmas.
These are the rules of the Catholic Church.
You lost this debate by not knowing what Denzinger was. And all it is list of papal dogmas. It's all papal dogmas and encyclicals.
Dogmas. It's not.
1820. It is. It is.
No, Jay, the laws are here. They're simple to follow. They're easy. One document.
This is the dogmas. That's the canons. Yes. Canons are applications of dogmas. These are the dogmas.
The canon is the application of the dogma.
You need to admit that this is the source of Catholic dogma.
No, you've said a very, very correct thing. The canon is the application of the dogmas.
And these are the dogmas. These are the dogmas. These are the dogmas. The Apostolic See cites Denzinger when it cites dogmas. The canon law is citing Denzinger at times.
This is how you use them. End of. There is no
want a new copy. You don't even know what Denzinger is. I've read through this twice. This is nothing but papal dogmas listed. You're a moron.
This is how you moron. This is how the rules get used.
Peter is defined according to Vatican I and Satis Cognitum in his successors. The primacy is defined as universal jurisdiction in Vatican I, in Pastor Aeternus, to be very clearly in his successors, to have full immediate jurisdiction in the Holy See through its congregations and its curia and its decisions. So you have to accept the juridical and the disciplinary decisions of the Roman See. The Roman See is the one that's tied to Rome because Peter died in Rome and he established his successors there. That means that prior to Vatican II, the only see that the world accepted and that the curia accepted as the apostolic see was the one in Rome. So in 1950, the only see that the entire world and the Roman Catholic the curia accepted was the one that was actually in Rome. So you have to demonstrate that there was a defection between 1955, 1963, and after the time of Vatican II, because the entire world accepted that as the Roman See. So that is the Roman See, right? Where did the Roman See go in its visible successors and its visible hierarchy? You say it fell to an episcopate that is not in Rome. Where is this visible unity? The easy answer is that it doesn't exist. There is no one holy Catholic apostolic church that exists in the Sedevacantists, because the Sedevacantists are not one. They're fractured into more divisions than the Protestants. The Sedevacantists are not holy. They don't produce saints. The Sedevacantists are not universal. They're not Catholic, because when St. Augustine argued against the Donatists, he argued that universality means the church throughout all the world consisting of the entire oikumene. The Sedevacantist chapels, 300, give me a break, against 1 billion that recognize Francis. Come on. That's not a unified Catholic church. And number 4, the constituent property, according to Pastor Aeternus of Vatican I, is that the Roman pontiff lives perpetually in his successors until the end of the world. That means that this fundamental constitution of the indefectibility and unity of the church cannot alter or go away before Jesus returns. In your view, it has altered and it has gone away into being something like orthodoxy. That's the irony here, is that if there is a 60-plus year acceptance of where we don't have a pope, then actually you're admitting the principle of orthodoxy, that we don't actually need the pope to guarantee the unity and succession of the church.
Oh, I'm not saying that at all. Again, you're putting words in my mouth and you're conflating different things. Peter is the head of the church, and his successor, whichever valid pope comes after Peter, has primacy of office in the sense that they have the right to create the laws, hire, fire, whatever, do whatever, because the pope has that authority. I've got no problem with that. You're saying that the Roman See was the one in Rome before 1958. Agree with that. I don't have any problem with that. That was the Roman See. Now, the problem is that after 1958, between 62 and 65, Vatican II came out. Vatican II is completely heretical. Therefore, the prudence of the church, prudence is one of the rules that we have to follow as Catholics, clearly states if a guy is heretic, you don't listen to what he said. So why do we go back to 1958? We can certainly say that since 1962, every pope that accepted Vatican II is a heretic. But Vatican II was instituted by Angelo Roncalli, who took over on 28th of October of 1958. And therefore, he's probably apostate too, which is why we ignore him and don't listen to anything he said. And again, this is clear rules of the Catholic Church. There is, it puts the lie to your idea that there has to be a constant living pope for the very simple fact that popes die. And sometimes it takes years before you elect a new
I've already dealt with the vacancy. I dealt with it in multiple places in the video, and you just ignored that. The problem is not a vacancy. The problem is not a vacancy. The problem is that there's a lack of a visible earthly head for 60 plus years, and there can't be another one because the Roman Curia is who elects the Pope. The Roman Curia is the congregations in Rome.
It's quite clear in Mysticia Corporis, Jay, that it clearly states that
Vatican I says it's a visible earthly head, successor to Peter, the living magisterium, until the end.
Yes, we're not at the end. We're busy.
So where's the visible successor?
The visible successor will happen once we have enough bishops.
Where's he been for 60 plus years? How's he going to be?
It doesn't matter how many years, Jay. It can be 1,000 years.
It does matter because there's nobody to elect him who's a valid.
No. The remaining bishops are clearly.
No, they can't. No, they can't. The canon law is clear who elects it.
Yeah. Bishops.
You just said canon law is dogma. Canon law decides who elects the Pope. All the people who would elect him are heretics and apostates on your view.
No, in your view, because all the people, no, in your view, not my view. No, your view, Jay, not my view. The bishops that remain faithful.
You just said they defected at Vatican II.
I'm saying that all the ones who accepted Vatican II defected.
Yeah, and that's the Roman Curia.
Not all of them accepted.
Yes, it is.
No,
name a person from the Roman Curia who didn't accept Vatican II. Name one.
The bishops that remain.
No, I remember the Roman Curia. Name a member of the Roman Curia who didn't.
Again, I think you're
because you don't have one. Because you don't have one. Because you don't have one.
There is no law at all that says that in fact, we have ex apostolatum.
I listed all the canon laws in the 1917 code that tell you who elects the Roman bishop.
You keep avoiding ex apostolatum officium, which clearly states that
it doesn't matter because it's prior to Vatican I, and Vatican I specifies where the Roman bishop comes from.
That is
I don't have I have no problem with cum ex apostolatus officio.
Well, it clearly states that we've had fake popes, that we will have them again, and that they are completely to be ignored, and anybody they elect is to be ignored.
But that has nothing to do with who elects the Pope. Who elects the Pope in canon law?
Or valid
Roman Curia. Can you name one member of the Roman Curia who didn't sign on to Vatican II?
Listen,
no.
If all of Rome were nuked, right?
Name one.
1960.
Name one. Where's your visible episcopate? Name one.
We have Bishop Sanborn, we have Bishop Selwyn.
They're not members of the Roman Curia.
They are by default.
No, they're not.
Was defective.
No, they're not. You have been demolished because of your pride.
No, it's not
spent hours attacking me. You don't know what Denzinger is. You don't know what Vatican I says. You don't know how the Roman Curia elects the Pope.
Again, your autism is showing through, Jay. You're trying
you just call it autism because you got demolished.
It is. It's some point of legalism that is nowhere written down.
Legalism. You just said it's all canon law. You're the one that keeps appealing to canon law. I listed all the canon laws that tell you who elects the Pope, the Roman Curia.
What you're saying is that if a basket player starts to take a golf club on the court, then we have to accept he's a basketball player. No, he's defected. He's clearly not playing basketball. He's no longer part of the basketball court.
You don't get to decide that. You don't get to make that decision.
I don't make that decision. Canon law does.
Now, let me interject. Here.
Canon law.
Jay, can you explain? Now, we're having an argument about the Roman Curia. I will admit that's not my strong suit, so I'm going to let you. Can you explain why those people are not members of the Curia and what the Curia actually is and stuff like that?
Catholic Encyclopedia, look at Roman Curia. Strictly speaking, it is the ensemble of departments or ministries which assist the sovereign pontiff in the government of the universal church. These are the Roman congregations, the tribunals, the offices of the Curia. The congregations, being the highest and most extensive departments of the pontifical government, are treated elsewhere under the Roman congregations. This article deals in particular with the offices of the Curia, the cardinal, and the pontifical family. That is not every bishop. Every bishop is not part of that. He needs there to be successors and bishops who are part of this crew to continue his goofy church. No, but it doesn't exist, and that's why he can't name one.
Now, Kurgan, why
named aren't members of the Roman Curia?
Kurgan, why do you disagree with his interpretation there, or what are your problems with that?
Well, I disagree for the very simple reason that, according to canon law, a heretic immediately vacates their office by default. There is nobody needs to say anything. So Jay is correct.
The Roman See can't defect, goofus. That's why your position doesn't work.
Can you let me answer? Let's Rolf.
Go ahead and answer.
So Jay is entirely correct when he says that currently the bishops in the Vatican are all heretics, pedophiles, whatever. They're scum of the earth as far as I'm concerned. He's right in that. So what he's trying to say, I believe, is that because the original official offices of the church, congregation of the faith, etc., are currently filled by impostors, there is no Roman See, and as such, you cannot elect a new pope. Now, that's absolute nonsense. Of course, if all those offices get nuked, let's say Rome got hit by a nuke instead of Vatican II, which is essentially the same thing. Well, so what? Does that mean that no single bishop on earth is no, obviously.
It's impossible according to Vatican I. This is why he doesn't understand Vatican I. That's not possible according to the way Vatican I defines the perpetual successors and living magisterium. You have no living magisterium, and that's why you lost this debate. Vatican I makes clear that there's not going to be an end of the vacancy or an end of the Roman See at the end of time.
All right, let him. Go ahead, Kurgan. Finish your thought. And what's your why does his interpretation of Vatican I not hold water with you?
Because his interpretation of Vatican I is just he's making it up. There is nowhere that it says that you have to have a living pope at all times and a living curia at all times. It doesn't say that.
I didn't say it all times. I said until the end of time. You're misquoting me. I dealt with vacancies in the apostolic see in multiple sections of the video. Vatican I is not talking about vacancies. Vatican I is talking about living successors in the magisterium of Peter until the end of the world, until the return of Christ.
I've got one more point on that. If you let me reply, I'll reply.
Go ahead. Let him get in. Go ahead.
So, Jay keeps going on about until the return of Jesus Christ. First of all, Jesus Christ has not returned. So, Jay,
groundbreaking argument there. Hey, thank you for letting us know that.
All right, go ahead. Let him get in. Go ahead.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
We also, quite clearly we're not clairvoyant. We do not know that there isn't going to be another pope at some point in the future before Jesus' return. So, again, Jay is just making assumptions. However, we know for a fact that whoever is left must necessarily take on the offices eventually because it's happened before. We know for a fact, again, the Ex Apostolatum Officium is very clear. Heretic popes are not, relevant. So it doesn't matter the fact that there's a current...
There's no such thing as heretic popes according to Vatican I, so he doesn't even know what he's talking about. Session 3, Section 1 says that the Constitution of the Church will continue in its present form until the end of the world, until the return of Jesus. If we skip down...
Okay, I haven't actually finished. I want to...
All right, go ahead. Let him finish. Now, we do have no disagreement that Jesus has not returned to the earth. That's not right. Okay. All right. So we do have agreement on that. Okay, now go ahead, Kurgan. Finish up your thought. I know Jay's chomping at the bit to get in some more, but go ahead.
I mean, again, if Jesus has not returned, the church has not ended. We've not come to end of times. However, there are plenty of prophecies in Catholic thought, and I believe also there is a certain interpretation of Revelation, which quite clearly state that at the end, even the head of the seat, the leaders of the church, even that is going to become the seat of Satan. So again, what we're seeing here is sort of all on course.
I'm glad you mentioned that because La Salette is prior to Vatican I. Vatican I negates the possibility of La Salette being true because Vatican I says that the seat of Peter will continue until the end. Session 4, Section 3 says that the Constitution of the Church, as it is, will continue until the end of time. We're not at the end of time, so the Constitution of the Church, with living visible successors in the office of Peter, will continue until the end of time.
You don't know what the end of time is?
Yes, we do.
No, you don't, Jay.
So the end of time. Wait, the end of time is defined as Jesus coming back, right?
You said out of your own mouth that Jesus hasn't returned. So where is the essential constitution of the Roman Church according to Vatican I at the present?
Jay, if Jesus returns tomorrow, okay, let's say Jesus returns tomorrow.
Where is the essential constitution of the Roman Catholic Church presently?
Again, let me finish my thought. If Jesus,
you had your talk. You had your talk.
No, I'm answering your question. Let me answer the question.
Go ahead. Let him. Go ahead.
So, if Jesus returns tomorrow, then quite clearly, what's happened up till now is clear evidence that the church got, kind of almost destroyed. We're told that in the end days, even the elect would eventually defect if it wasn't for the fact that Jesus returns.
Yeah, but the problem is that if we're going to have that view, it has to be the Roman See that doesn't defect, because Vatican I is very clear that the Roman See cannot defect, and you keep switching back and forth between saying it has and it hasn't to maintain the nonsense of your position.
I'm very clear on it, Jay. Listen up, very clear. What was the Roman See in 1957? They have all become the guys that were at that time in the Vatican.
That's heresy. That's why you're a heretic, because Vatican I says that it can't defect.
No,
Holy See can't defect.
Let me finish. The ones in 1957 that were currently in the Vatican, I don't know that every one of them defected. I can't know that. What I do know is that by 1965, anybody who did not reject Vatican II was de facto a heretic. All right? The ones that did not do that did not defect. And no, it's very simple.
You couldn't name a single member of the Roman Curia who could even elect another pope. It doesn't matter because you're not getting the argument of what Vatican I says that the office of Peter is. I recognize, and the people at Vatican I recognize, that there have been vacancies and anti-popes. That has nothing to do with the point of the argument. The point of the argument is that the essential constitution of the church, in terms of its indefectibility, in terms of the constitution of what makes up Peter and his office, right? Do I need to list them for you again? I can.
No, but that's your interpretation. It's not what it says.
It's not. It's directly from Vatican I. It's directly from Satis Cognitum. It's directly from Denzinger, 1821 to 24. Denzinger is citing Pius IX, you clown.
It doesn't matter what you're saying, Jay. That's not what
It does matter, because all I'm doing is citing your dogmas.
You're not actually quoting the document. You're making shit up. So.
No. Well, do I need to just read Denzinger for you?
I don't care about Denzinger.
I love it when you say that. Keep saying this. Keep saying this, because it's nothing but papal quotes.
The rules get.
You don't care about what the papal quotes are.
The rules get applied according to canon law, not according.
Now,
to
let me ask you that this has been a point of contention. Why do you not care about Denzinger? I'll admit this.
He doesn't know what it is. He didn't even.
No.
He thought it was Ludwig Denzinger.
Question, Jay. Let me answer
go ahead. Go ahead, Kurgan. Why do you not care about this book?
I don't, because that book is a collection of supposed dogmatic beliefs of the church.
Supposed
blah, blah.
All
Dogmatic.
right, let him go ahead. Let him finish. Go ahead.
Hey, can't you control yourself? Come on, man.
Go ahead. Finish.
So, it's a collection of theological thought, dogmas, whatever, which has interpretations to it. Now,
no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. That's a lie. That's incorrect. You're wrong. It doesn't have any interpretations.
Wait your turn, mate.
Go ahead.
Now, all the dogmas of the Catholic Church are collated into a set of rules right here.
No, they're not.
Sort of canon law of
You are an idiot.
How
you don't even know what dogmas as opposed.
All right, let him finish. Go ahead.
So the rules of the Catholic Church get applied according to this book and this book only. This is the book that explains how the laws of the church actually work. Regardless of your personal interpretation of this or that dogma, those are the rules. And it's a very clear document. So it doesn't matter if Jay believes this or that other thing. You follow the rules of canon law. End of.
All right. So, now go ahead, Jay.
This is what we get when we get a guy who makes videos channeling aliens and talking about aliens blowing up Mars. This is literally what he believes. On his website, he believes in past life regression therapy, which means that he believes in reincarnation, which is not a Catholic teaching at all. It's actually heresy. And everybody in the Catholic world, whether they're Novus Ordo or Trad, would know that Denzinger is not interpretations of dogma. It's just a list of Catholic dogmas. It's not opinions. It has no opinions in it whatsoever. It's merely a list of the papally approved dogmas.
How do you apply those dogmas?
The debate is actually over.
How do you apply those dogmas?
I'm done because the debate is over. I don't have a problem. I cited canon law at the beginning of the debate. I listed you all the canons. I listed you all the canons that tell you how the Pope is elected.
How do you apply the dogmas of the church, Jay?
They're called canon law.
Exactly. Thank you. So that's the only thing.
No, it's not. No, it's not. And no Catholic in the world will say what you're saying.
Now, let me ask you, Kurgan, he mentioned, he called you a heretic for some of your beliefs there, if you wanted to respond to that and the alien stuff. And all
yeah, well, a lot of, the alien stuff, whatever. I mean, Jay's made videos
from reincarnation,
about being on weed, whatever, like
from reincarnation.
But personal,
you channel UFOs and you want to call me out for weed? You channel UFOs.
Hold on. Let me answer the question again. Why are you interrupting? Why are you so scared? Let me answer the question.
Scared. I told you I would demolish you.
Be quiet. Control yourself. You're emotionally incontinent. Relax. So, sorry, Rolf. What was the question?
So reincarnation. He mentioned the alien. I was just letting you respond. Since he brought
my website, like I said, I've only officially become Catholic in 2017. So there's a bunch of stuff there. I mean, I lived like a fucking weird, heretic most of my life. So all the posts and whatever that I've done before the 25th of May of 2017 probably include a bunch of heretic stuff.
So you renounce that? Is that what you're saying?
So no, I'm saying that those belief systems have changed since they've evolved. Right. I evolved as a human being. Now, with regard to reincarnation, I know that the Catholic Church sees reincarnation as a heretic sort of thing. And again, this is a finer point that would probably take a few hours to cover, so it's not going to get covered here, and I know Jay will attack this position, but there are ways that you could possibly accept that there is some form of reincarnation, although it goes against the sort of dogmatic beliefs of the church, and it does so for very good reasons. Like, for example, right at the beginning of the video, Jay said that there is nobody that can, even martyrs fall outside of the church. Regardless of whether they even die for the church. Let me just read you a quote from one of the remaining valid priests that answered the question I asked him, verbatim. Yes, you're right in thinking about salvation and baptism of desire and of blood. These are exceptions, not the general rule, and do not contradict the dogma of extra ecclesiam nulla salvis. Outside of the church, nobody can be saved. This dogma is always true, but we have to consider how exactly someone can belong to the church. The possibility does exist that someone doesn't belong to the body of the church in foro externo, in the public outside form, but belongs to the church in foro interno, in God's conscience. And in this situation, it is not of his own fault. Such a person can be saved. So again, refuting what he's, autistically trying to say.
All right, go ahead, Jay.
I think it's just total nonsense. I'm done. I don't have anything else to say.
All right, fair enough. You don't have any final thoughts?
Yeah, I like to close my debate.
Go ahead. And I'll give Kurgan the last. Go ahead.
Okay. So I began the debate by talking about the 1917 Code of Canon Law. He likes to cite this as if that is the dogma. That's not the dogma. The dogmas are the dogmas. The canon law is the application of dogmas. That's two different things. Anybody in the world of Catholicism who's been there for more than a year or two should know in Catholic theology that the sources of Catholic dogma is not an interpretation of the opinions of any guy. It's not the interpretation of the opinions of Ludwig Ott or Heinrich Denzinger. It's just a list of papally approved dogmas. The Vatican has cited this document. All Catholic theologians in the world will cite that as the sources of Catholic dogma. It can be found at any traditional website that sells Catholic books, whether it's the SSPX or the Sedevacantist. I got mine from Seda Chapels. So I cited multiple canons that tell you that the Roman Pontiff 149, 218, 219, 154 through 160, 230 to 241 in the 1917 Code of Canon Law, as well as 162, 164, 165, 180 on, are very clear what the Roman Curia is, who comprises it, that they elect the Pope, and that they alone elect and determine who the Pope is, and not anyone else in the world. And he calls that dogma, then he needs to stick to the 1917 Code, which says that's who elects the Pope. I went on to talk about Denzinger in other places, such as 1821 to 24. I'm glad he keeps saying that Denzinger doesn't matter, because it just buries him deeper and deeper into his hole. I mentioned essentially that the indefectibility of the church is described in Pastor Aeternus, which is the decree of Vatican I, as well as if you look at Denzinger 1821 to 24, that is the specific section of Pastor Aeternus, which if he had known what Denzinger was, he would know that's what that is. The very thing that he pulled up a minute ago, his papers of Vatican I. The church is indefectible in the Roman Catholic system. The church is in perpetuity. The church is public and visible. It is public and visible according to its Petrine office. This Petrine office is the source of unity. Can there be vacancies? Absolutely. Can there be antipopes? Absolutely. Can there be a vacancy such that the fundamental constitution and unity of the church changes? No. That's why Vatican I is very clear, and it doesn't matter what pre-Vatican I Marian prophecy said about the defection of Rome, because Vatican I denied those things. Vatican I says that the perpetuity of the successors of Peter, his primacy, all of those elements that are listed in Vatican I, in Satis Cognitum, the visible headship, which he denied in his first rebuttal on earth, that visible headship continues to the end of the world. It's not saying that there's no period of vacancy, but when the Roman Curia elects a successor, that is under the charism of infallibility. You don't have the right and the authority to judge the decisions of the Roman Curia as an individual lay Catholic. So if we were to be concise, I would say that the Sedeprivation of Sedevacantist theory is a theory, as John says in his book, the book that I was covering, on defection. It's a theory on the defection of the Roman See. But if the Roman See has in any sense defected, then Vatican I is not true. If Vatican I is not true, then neither is Roman Catholicism. So I would just direct people to my good friend who we led out of Sedevacantism, John Pontrello, who has the excellent book, if you want to read more on this, The Sedevacantist Delusion, which is what my video was about. My video was directed against Feniites particularly, not the other groups of Sedevacantists who affirm baptism of desire. I don't really care about baptism of desire versus Feniites in the Roman Catholic system. That video was directed against the largest online group of Sedevacantists and their support of Feniism. There is no one holy Catholic and apostolic unity that exists amongst the Sedevacantists, and I would encourage anybody who thinks that there is to go experience the world of Sedevacantism and see if you actually see that visible unity there. You will not find, again, the four marks of the church. There will not be holiness. You will find nothing but squabbling and picking each other apart over nonsense, splitting more than the Protestants do. You will find no holiness, no saints. Where are the Sedevacantist saints? They ought to be blasting
light rays from their eyes if they're the true church. But what do we see in those groups? We see episcopi vagantes, wandering bishops of spooks, kooks, and disinformation. And I was in that world. I know what the Sedevacantist world is like. Many of those bishops are complete frauds and kooks, like Archbishop Tuke himself, who many of these people claim to have their apostolic lineage from. Tuke was a kook, quite literally. The only Sedevacantist guy coming out of Vatican II that a lot of these people claim their lineage from. This guy was actually insane. So it doesn't possess Catholicity in terms of universality. There's no universality in this tiny movement. And he says, oh, there's 300 chapels. So what? 300 chapels is nothing compared to the billion people who accept Francis in Rome. So that's not the Catholic Church. You aren't in the Catholic Church. You're in a Donatist schismatic sect. And universality is not there. And it's not apostolic because the apostolic see, according to Vatican I, continues in perpetuity with all of its constituent properties of Peter, primacy, living Roman pontiff, and connected to the seat of Rome for all eternity until Christ returns, until the end of time, until he brings into time eternity, right? So that's there according to Vatican I. I already listed the sessions and the sections. And so not only does Sedevacantism and Sedepravationism fail to achieve its end, it actually verges into, on the one hand, affirming a union with an empty seat, a union with a headless body. And it's very ironic that he calls himself the Kurgan when, as he pointed out, that's the headless guy in the Highlander. He gets his head chopped off. Well, that's very ironic because the whole series of the Sedevacantist world is a fractured bunch of fringe groups with no head. So I think that that's very ironic. It's a fitting name for him.
All right, Kurgan, you have the last word here. By the way, I appreciate you guys doing a little back and forth. I know that wasn't part of the original thing, so I'm glad we got I'll mix it up a little bit. So thank you guys for that. And go ahead, Kurgan.
Well, I've already addressed Jay's points. He keeps hammering the same things as though repeating them makes them valid. It doesn't. The dogmas of the church are interpreted and applied according to canon law. The fact that the Curia in Rome is currently completely apostate is a reality, but that absolutely doesn't mean that the remaining valid bishops are invalid in any way. And it's a simple point of canon law that common sense follows. So we're also told, again, I just want to address this point that he keeps going on about that if the papacy was hijacked, if the Catholic Church was actually hijacked by infiltrators, regardless of their origin, this would somehow put the lie to the promise that the church would always be with us until the return of Jesus. This is demonstrably false in a number of ways. First, the papal encyclical of 1559 I've already referred to, Cum Apostolatus Officium, which makes it clear that apostate popes have existed, will exist, etc. Second, there is no timeline that tells you, oh, well, if you've got an apostate pope or a series of apostate popes for X number of years, then the church is no longer valid. Nowhere does it say that. Third, we're taught in the Bible by Paul that whenever men choose to delve into perversion, iniquity, and stray from the path, God gives them over to their perversions and passions. So we know for a fact that every single human on earth can choose to go down this road. And popes are not exempt from this any more than anybody else. Nowhere does it say that a pope is immune to this way that God has of sometimes dealing with perverts, liars, and other people of the lie. Fourthly, we're told in the Bible that many, in fact most, will in fact be deceived, and that the true path is difficult and narrow. Yet we're also told that the church will remain with us right to the end, at which point eventually Jesus will return, for if he did not, even the elect, that is the most highly faithful servant, would ultimately be deceived by Satan as well. And here we have a perfect parallel of that. The church remains true and visible as long as you take the time to look properly, while the superficial fake Novus Ordo church pretends to be the real church and deceives millions and millions of people. That's why the Sedevacantists are starting to wake up a lot more people in the Catholic, nominally Catholic world, and they're becoming a force to be reckoned with. And lastly, fifthly, anyone that actually bothers to be a genuine Catholic and informs himself on Catholic dogma cannot in any logical or reasonable or true way make any kind of argument against the fact that Vatican II was a complete heresy and that anyone who does not reject it loses their office, and as such, the validity of being a cleric within the church without anyone having to say anything. I've written a blog post on on my blog, which is jiffylotto.com, on the 7th of September of this year. So if you look for that date on the blog, you'll find a logically laid out series of reasons why this works. And it's been uncontroverted and unassailable, including by people like Ann Barnhart and whatever. So if you want to go the details, go there. All we can say is that this has been a long time, but the fact that it's been 61 years is in no way means that there either won't be another pope or that Jesus will return at some point. Again, Jay keeps saying, the end of time, the end of time. You don't know when the end of time. You don't know what that looks like. You don't know whether it operates as, maybe there has to be 150 years of no popes and only a few remnant Catholics lying around in hiding somewhere while they're being persecuted. That is pretty much what almost every Catholic prophecy says it will happen in the end. So again, he's got nothing. He keeps quoting Denzinger. The application of the dogma is very clear, and it's canonic law. That's it. You can't ignore that. Now you can say, oh, but Denzinger says this dogma, that dogma, that dogma. It doesn't matter, because the magisterium of the church has created a document that clearly states how you interpret and how you enact those dogmas. So again, as I said, the man's got nothing. And I actually believe that his reason for doing a 2.5-hour video on supposedly a tiny group of schismatics online,
100,000 tiny,
is because you do say that in your video. But anyway, is because I think he's a bit worried, because there's only some, all it takes is if 10% of nominal Catholics become Sedevacantists, that's going to be, a lot of people. There's millions of people that are going to suddenly become Catholic again. So that's my position, and that's it.
All right, fair enough, gentlemen. I think that's it. I appreciate you coming on the Kill Stream and doing this.
Thank you very much.
Oh, no problem, Jay. Thank you as well, man. Merry Christmas to both of you.
Absolutely, yeah. Merry Christmas to you, Ralph. I got to get back to reading my Ludwig Denzinger here.
All right,
a lot of Ludwig Denzinger,
including the heretic in the hat.
Got to read a lot of Ludwig Denzinger. That's when you lost the debate, by the way.
Good night.
Good night, gentlemen. All right, that was a little bit off the beaten path for our show, but I think it was fun. I saw some people in the chat. They thought it was a nice departure as well. So I'm glad we did it. It will be up on the podcast feed. Let me see. Flamenco, are you still here? Flamenco's muted. I think he might be playing a game or something. All right. I didn't know he was still here. Okay. Let me read these, though, because people did give me a little bit of money. Let me. Haywood Jablom says, where's the debate? Even if I agree with him, what the fuck? I didn't interrupt during the stream. I just let it go. Spanish Inquisition says, high energy Chagat versus low energy Vox Day. Jack says, Jay started me on classic Bond films. Thank you, big guy. Thank you as well, sir. Haywood Jablomi, just subscribe monthly. Rage Player says, LOL, literal Bible thumpers going on here. Pensive Cowboy says, calm down, Bob, man. Take the trip to Tel Aviv. Jack says, Jay, thoughts on your boomer meme being hijacked? I'm sorry that didn't get asked, but it was, I just kind of let it go, like I said. Pensive Cowboy says, Nosferatu man fears Catholic dogma. Megu Meme says, why is the Pope selected by man instead of by God? They would be. There's a longer answer to that, but I'm not necessarily equipped to give it to you. Cheeseburger 6 says, never been more sure about atheism. Thanks, guys. Pensive Cowboy says, take the flight, and he links this, which I don't know what this is. The Vatican Rag. I don't know that song. But thank you for that. Pensive Cowboy says, Pope Francis wants on. Check the Vatican smokestack. I actually saw that during the show and started chuckling. And then, here's a clip that Spanish sent in. Let me unmute YouTube so I can play this. There we go. Rage Player says, got a lot better once the blood sport started. Yeah, and I was hoping that would happen. And I wasn't going to push it, but so Kurgan started kind of interrupting during Dyer's segment. I think it was his critique segment. That was the one he interrupted, and I was like, okay, well, gloves are off at this point. I'm just going to let it go. So I'm glad he was the one who initiated that so that I can't be blamed for it, because I wanted that to happen anyway. I want him to fight like that. So, but once he interrupted, I was like, all right, I'm just going to sit back now and just let it go. It's going to be a bare knuckles fight at this point. So I was glad it happened though. So, and I thank Kurgan for doing that. Let's see. Sigma Zero says Jay Shapiro of a cod. I think chat like that too. Dead Kulak says Flam succumbed to his bleach. I think that's it. I'll see you guys on Monday. I'm not sure if Ashley Ray Goldenberg is coming on Monday or Wednesday. We'll figure that out next week. The next Blood Sports match is going to be on Thursday, and it's between Vincent James of Red Elephants and Nick Rekieta of Rekieta Law, a longtime guest on the Kill Stream. Nick Rekieta going to be making his Blood Sports debut this Thursday, December the 19th at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. That's going to be a big one. And then, of course, on December 22nd at 2 p.m. Eastern on a Sunday, we have Sticks and Hammer versus E. Michael Jones, pornography debate. So, yeah, I'm ready. Also, I'm very tired, so I'm going to go to sleep. Oh, my God. All right, I'm looking good. Looking forward to both of those. I'm looking good, too, but that's a separate topic. I'm going to find the outro song, and then I'm going to go away. Let's see. Kill Stream outro. I'll see you guys Monday, 9:30 p.m. Eastern. The Kill Stream. Check this out on the podcast if you came in late. I'll probably also be running replays on the channel now that I'm able to do that during the weekend. So join in. Have some fun. It's the Kill Stream. Merry Christmas. Very well. Yes, I'll open the box. Also, it is pretty amazing that we had 1,000 people watching a stream about esoteric Catholic dogma, so thank you.
Secret flags and reports, but we all know who's to blame. Can't afford the retort. Jihadi Jarbo's his name. Now you won't take them round, or all them channels you stride. So just delete your account. I'm sure there's folders to find. You can't peacefully sunset the kill stream. You never peacefully sunset the kill stream. You won't peacefully sunset the kill stream. You never peacefully sunset the kill stream. You won't peacefully sunset the.
Let's do one more song, an encore.